Tokyo Xtreme Racer is unquestionably a cult classic in the context of racing games, and with the Japanese title making a surprise return on Steam in 2025, we thought we would delve into its long and storied lineage. This is the somewhat convoluted history of Tokyo Xtreme Racer. Between the late 1980s and early 2000s, Japan's Shuto Expressway was infamous for its underground racing scene, with the notorious Midnight Club hosting illegal races on the Bayshore route, known natively as the Wangan, between Tokyo and Yokohama. This scene would inspire Tokyo Xtreme Racer, a video game series focusing on highway racing, Japanese car culture, and customization. It's a simple premise, so you may be surprised by the overwhelming number of Tokyo Xtreme Racer games released over the last 30 plus years, with the series gaining a loyal following. Returning in 2025 after a nearly 20-year break, you might not be familiar with Tokyo Xtreme Racer's convoluted history, or Shutoku Battle as it's known in Japan. Adding to the confusion, some titles have alternative Western names like Tokyo Highway Challenge, Import Tuner Challenge, and Street Supremacy. If that wasn't already bewildering, the first Tokyo Xtreme Racer game is technically the 11th entry in the long-running series. Are you still with us? Before it became best known for Tokyo Xtreme Racer, Japanese developer Genki, founded in 1990, dabbled with different genres, first publishing the 1991 action game Devilish for the Game Gear in Japan, before developing the Kiliak first-person shooter series for the PlayStation in the mid-90s. Even in those early years, Genki had an appetite for racing, initially focusing on licensed motorsport titles. Its first foray into racing came in 1992 with the eponymous Aguri Suzuki F1 Super Driving, a Formula 1 simulator for the Super Nintendo and Game Boy. And this was followed by a pair of mid-90s MotoGP titles, GP1 and GP1 Part 2, though the latter wasn't released in Europe. Genki soon found its niche with the release of Shutoku Battle 94 Keiichi Tsuchiya Drift King, paving the way for what would eventually become Tokyo Xtreme Racer. A Japanese exclusive, the first entry sped onto the Super Famicom, Japan's version of the Super Nintendo, in May 1994. As the title suggests, it was named after real-life professional racer and drifting legend Keiichi Tsuchiya. Better known as the Drift King, Tsuchiya is often credited for popularizing the art of sideways driving and appears as an opponent in the final head-to-head race. Like the original SNES classic Top Gear, also known as Top Racer in Japan, Shutoku Battle 94 is played in split screen even when in single player, with players racing modified Japanese cars across Japanese highways, circuits, and mountain roads. With a focus on drifting and manual shifting, the driving experience was unforgiving. The game's modest car selection included 4 unlicensed replicas of legendary cars like the Nissan Skyline GTR R32 and Toyota Supra Mark IV. A scenario mode saw you start with a stock car before upgrading it with parts purchased using money won in races. The first entry was popular enough in Japan to spawn 2 Super Famicom sequels, and whilst these first 3 entries were never released outside of Japan, the series would make its Western debut with Tokyo Highway Battle on the PlayStation, released in 96 and 97 in North America and Europe respectively, with a Japanese Sega Saturn port to follow. Featuring 72 fictional cars, Tokyo Highway Battle saw players race and weave through traffic across 3 circuits based on the Tokyo Expressway, with a dedicated drift button making the game more accessible for newcomers. Car customization was more comprehensive than any other PlayStation racer, until Gran Turismo arrived 1 year later in Japan. The game allowed players to buy and manually install upgrades such as turbochargers, exhausts, and suspension parts, among others, with every modification affecting your car's performance or handling, a remarkable feat for an early PlayStation racer. You could even modify the ECU to remove the top speed limit. Although the 3D texture-mapped graphics were impressive for the time, the title doesn't leave a great first impression. In the early stages, the cars are painfully slow and horrible to drive until you install upgrades. This is surprising, considering that Tsuchiya and Masaki Bando, who went on to found Japan's Super GT series, helped fine-tune the driving physics. Tokyo Highway Battle is worth revisiting alone, however, for the quintessentially 1990s FMV intro, featuring a Nissan Silvia being thrashed around Tsukuba Circuit. 4 more Japanese-only sequels would appear in the 32-bit era, before we finally witnessed the arrival of the original mainline Tokyo Xtreme Racer title. It wasn't until 1999 that the Tokyo Xtreme Racer name was introduced to the West, with the first entry simply called Shutoku Battle in Japan and Tokyo Highway Racer in Europe. A launch title for the ill-fated Dreamcast, it introduced the signature SP battle system that would define the series. A quest mode saw you cruise Tokyo's sprawling Shuto Expressway at night, challenging rivals to impromptu duels by flashing your headlights. Each team and driver have memorable names and backstories, from Lonely Jackal to Death Panther and Alluring Fairy, with many rivals returning in future installments. What also makes SP battles unique is how they blend racing and fighting games. Highway battles are always head-to-head, and there are no finish lines. Rather than finish in first place, the aim is to defeat your opponent. Both rivals have a spirit point bar, think of it like a health meter in a fighting game. If your rival falls behind or crashes, their SP bar drains. Races are won if you stay ahead and your rival runs out of SP points, rewarding you with cash for new cars and upgrades. With 141 rivals to race, it's a simple yet captivating gameplay loop. The superb encapsulation of the urban street racing vibe predates the influential Need for Speed Underground games and the Fast and the Furious movie franchise. Its floaty car handling, however, does leave a lot to be desired, but the first true Tokyo Xtreme Racer game set the blueprint for the series going forward as it started gaining traction. The turn of the millennium saw Genki release a sequel for the Dreamcast, known as Shutoku Battle 2 in Japan, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2 in the US, and Tokyo Highway Racer 2 in Europe. While the gameplay wasn't dramatically different, the visuals were a huge step up, with highly detailed car models for the time. Before Gran Turismo 3 would raise the bar, it was one of the best looking racing games on console. The expanded sequel added new routes, resulting in over 100 miles of road to tear up and a new sense of freedom. Instead of driving in loops, you could change routes by using interchanges and off-ramps to find new locations. Elsewhere, the number of rivals more than doubled, with over 370 opponents to challenge. These included the introduction of Wanderers, who would only appear if you meet strict requirements like driving a specific car or during a particular time of day. The car count doubled to 65, but manufacturers were seemingly still reluctant to license their cars for a game about illegal street racing. Since it's a late Dreamcast game, the PAL version isn't cheap these days. In the UK, be prepared to pay around about £80 in CEX for a used copy of Tokyo Highway Racer 2. With the Dreamcast discontinued following disappointing sales and Sega pulling out of the console market, 2001 marked the first PlayStation 2 entry, called Tokyo Xtreme Racer 0 in the US, Shutoku Battle 0 in Japan, and simply Tokyo Xtreme Racer in Europe, where it was published by Ubisoft. Notably, this was the first time the Tokyo Xtreme Racer name was used outside of Japan and the US. Zero was effectively an enhanced port of Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2, with improved graphics, refined handling, and a better sense of speed, infusing a sense of danger as you hurtle down the highway while narrowly missing traffic. The number of cars also increased to 165, though many were just custom variants of existing models. For most people outside of Japan, however, this entry seems to be the game that acted as an introduction to the series, helping its global popularity. Known as Shutoku Battle 1 in Japan, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, released in 2003 for the PS2, is often revered as a fan favourite, particularly in America. Unlike its predecessor, however, it never had a European release. Notably, this was the first game in the series with licensed cars, the roster featuring over 100 vehicles from 18 manufacturers, including Mazda, Mitsubishi, Nissan, and Toyota. In another series first, Western manufacturers were represented, with cars such as America's Ford GT, which was still a concept at the time, the UK's sleek Lotus Esprit, and Germany's Mercedes-Benz 500e Performance Saloon joining the Japanese machines. Genki even used German tuning company Gembala to get around EA's Porsche licensing red tape, although the same couldn't be said for Honda, notable by its absence. Alongside Western cars, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 introduced tyre wear and an oversteer-focused handling model, making the cars more lively. Plus, we saw the introduction of weather effects and car management. As you race, you must monitor your water and oil temperature, which affects performance if it gets too high and could be cooled down by either returning to your garage or stopping in a pit area. The visuals leapt forward too, with higher quality car models, lighting, and reflection effects, while customization expanded with engine swaps. These had to be earned, however, unlocking after you've clocked up over 2,000 kilometers in the car you want to modify. Compared to its predecessors, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 was enormous in scope. While previous games let you cruise around Tokyo's highways, Genki faithfully recreated the highways of Osaka and Nagoya for the third entry. Tokyo, meanwhile, was expanded to incorporate the Yokohama route, bringing the total road length to a whopping 200 miles, combined with over 600 rivals. This came at a cost though, with sparse traffic making the highways feel somewhat empty. In this alternative universe, every road user in Tokyo drives a yellow Toyota Hiace minivan. There's even a light story with the most mid-2000s cutscenes you've ever seen, giving context to the lore and rival street racing gangs. Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 is not only the most feature-packed game in the series to date, but it's also the best-selling. If you enjoy watching sim racing content on YouTube or just general gaming videos, perhaps you want to have a go at creating some for yourself. This is where Elgato steps in. It has an incredible range of streaming and video production products like capture cards, webcams, microphones, cam links, green screens, anything you can think of that's going to help you with your video production and streaming, Elgato probably has a product. Just make sure you check out the affiliate link down in the description below. By doing so, you'll be able to buy those products, and also Traxion will get a little bit of assistance and support from that as well. Conversely, the following main entry was downsized. With handheld gaming on the rise in the early 2000s, the series made its way onto Nintendo's Game Boy Advance with Tokyo Xtreme Racer Advance, released in 2005 and 2006 in the US and Europe respectively. It was not only the first game in the series not developed by Genki, but also the first to feature locations outside of Japan, with LA and London appearing alongside Tokyo. This may explain why it bizarrely never saw a release in Japan. Aside from the terrible draw distance, the 3D graphics were impressive for a Game Boy Advance game, ranking alongside other technical marvels like the ports of V-Rally 3 and Stuntman. Nintendo may have dominated the handheld gaming scene in the mid-2000s with its Game Boy Advance and DS, but that didn't stop Sony from trying to compete with its first handheld console, the PlayStation Portable. With it came a new platform-exclusive Tokyo Xtreme Racer in the form of Street Supremacy, known as Shuto Battle in Japan. It's one of the most unique entries in the franchise, and not just because of its PSP exclusivity. Understandably smaller in scope, Street Supremacy abandoned the free-roaming highways in favour of a new team battle mode, where you take control of specific areas ruled by street racing gangs. You join a team and rise the ranks by battling other members and then the team boss. Defeating them sees you take over as team boss, allowing you to recruit rival street racers onto your team by winning races and lowering their loyalty. This unique system sets it apart from other entries, but hasn't been seen since. Reviews for the PSP entry were harsh, criticising the game's clunky handling, long loading times and broken multiplayer. IGN scored it a 2.5 out of 10, with the reviewer calling it one of the worst racing games I've ever laid my hands on, and so devoid of fun, it should be illegal. Ouch. After the PSP spin-off, Tokyo Xtreme Racer returned to home consoles with Shuto Battle X for the Xbox 360, otherwise known as Import Tuner Challenge, outside of Japan. While the jump to the HD generation brought expected visual upgrades, other aspects were downgraded. Chiefly, the car roster was downsized to a paltry 18 drivable cars, excluding unlockable boss vehicles, though this is likely because they were rebuilt for the Xbox 360 with higher quality textures. They also featured fully modelled interiors, showcased in a new cockpit camera. Western import cars were removed, as were the weather effects and several mainstay characters. And unlike the last mainline game, Import Tuner Challenge is only set in Tokyo, omitting and shortening multiple existing routes. There were a few improvements, however. Customization was even more comprehensive, with new licensed body kits and nitrous returning from Street Supremacy. When installing upgrades, you can see the components visually change under the bonnet in the tuning menu, a neat touch you often don't see in modern racing games. Interiors were also fully customizable, allowing you to change the trim colour, seats, and steering wheel, and the Western game boasted a visceral sense of speed thanks to blurring and camera shake effects. While the core SP battles returned, a more traditional time attack mode, where you must reach the goal before your rival, added some much needed variety. Parking areas were also repurposed as a meeting point where you could talk to rivals, challenge them to races, and learn their backstories, enriching the series' lore. Moreover, vehicle handling was grippier, making the cars feel more natural. Import Tuner Challenge received lukewarm reviews, ending the mainline series on a whimper rather than a bang. With Genki's racing project division shut down, it looked like Tokyo Xtreme Racer had reached the end of the road after a long run. But Genki's journey doesn't end here. Fast forward 19 years later, and Tokyo Xtreme Racer made a surprise return, with the Steam Early Access game launching in February 2025. But before we delve into this, we must touch upon some of the many additional spin-offs. And I'm not even going to talk about every single one because there are simply too many. So for an even more detailed summary, be sure to check out our article on the TraxionGG website. Link is in the description. 1995's Wangan Dead Heat for the Sega Saturn and its enhanced successor, Wangan Heat Dead Plus, were focused on female models, with the objective to try and impress them by winning races. Yeah, those live-action cutscenes and the additional second disc solely containing more videos of these women haven't aged well, let's say. Then there was the truly bizarre racing and dating hybrid Wangan Trial Love. For reference, Genki was not involved in these particular projects. In 2003, Tokyo Xtreme Racer's success led to the formation of Genki Racing Project, a division dedicated to the series. GRP's first title would be the 2003 online MMO racer Shuto Battle Online. Released only in Japan for PC, the project was short-lived, with the servers shutting down only 2 years later, despite recent fan-made revival attempts. Mere months later, GRP released Keido Battle, Nico, Haruna, Roko, Hakone in Japan for the PS2, with a renamed American version following years later. Whereas the main games focused on highway racing, Keido Battle was inspired by Toge Battles, a form of head-to-head drift racing originating in Japan, where competitors drive on twisty mountain roads. 5 game modes introduced players to the world of precision sideways driving, including a career mode, featuring official daytime events alongside underground night races, with 5 mountain courses replacing Tokyo Xtreme Racer's highways and around 200 rivals to defeat. The Japanese version introduced licensed cars to the series several months before Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, with European manufacturers such as Audi, Alfa Romeo and Volkswagen appearing, alongside Japanese and US manufacturers, with over 150 cars to unlock. 2 more Keido Battle games would appear in the following years, adding more licensed cars and notably, the third title adding laser-traced Toge routes based on real roads along with more realistic physics. Good luck to collectors trying to find the PAL games nowadays, unless you're willing to pay over £100 for them. 2005 saw another departure for the series. Dubbed a car-tuning RPG, Racing Battle C1 Grand Prix was Genki's attempt at a semi-realistic circuit racing game instead of illegal street racing. Effectively Genki's answer to Gran Turismo, this spin-off let you race on real-world tracks like Tsukuba, Suzuka, Nikko and TI, now known as Okayama International Circuit. Traditional SP battles also returned, with the C1 Expressway repurposed as a race course with no traffic. Naturally, there was also a detailed tuning system featuring aftermarket parts from Japanese tuners, including HKS and Jun. Among the 117 vehicles were competition-spec cars, like the HKS Genki Toyota Altezza drift car, built and driven by Nobuteru Taniguchi in the 2005 D1 season, among others. These were accompanied by domestic Japanese kei and sports cars, as well as outlandish rides ranging from a Nissan Cube limousine to a Yunus Roadster drag car. 20 years on, Racing Battle C1 Grand Prix is an interesting anomaly in the long-running series. It's a shame that few people could play it though, because it was never available outside of Japan. Happily however, you don't need to learn Japanese to navigate the complicated menus anymore, as a modder released a handy English language patch last year, allowing more players to discover this hidden racing gem. Beyond the Tokyo Xtreme Racer games, Genki also developed 3 titles directly based on the Wangan Midnight anime. And while not directly linked to Tokyo Xtreme Racer, these games follow a familiar formula, combining SP battle-style highway races with story modes and characters from the manga series, plus exaggerated on-screen speedlines. Then there's the myriad of mobile spin-offs. Genki released 14 Japanese-only mobile games between 2001 and 2017, starting with Shuto Battle H and culminating with Shuto Battle Extreme for Android and iOS. So that may all be a lot to take in, but this lineage has led us up to 2025's new Tokyo Xtreme Racer reboot. While the graphics are shinier with an upgraded engine under the bonnet, the reboot is a return to form, reprising SP battles, customization, and a roster of Japanese cars. With no online connection requirements, microtransactions, or live service trappings, Tokyo Xtreme Racer is refreshingly straightforward. You can buy a car on a modest budget, hit the highway, and look for rivals to race, upgrading your car or buying new ones with money won in races. It harks back to a simpler era of racing games. With glowing reviews and player numbers peaking at over 15,000 on launch week, Tokyo Xtreme Racer shows there's still a demand for single-player focused arcade driving games, despite the rise of realistic sim racers. And that is going to wrap up our trip down memory lane, but I want to hear from you. Do you have fond memories of the Tokyo Xtreme Racer series, or are you brand new to the franchise? Do let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to the Traxion channel for more racing game videos like this in future, and leave us a like if you've enjoyed this one. We also have a Discord server which you can join via the information in the description. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.